Welcome, fellow explorers. My name is Christian Alexanderson, and this is Hemlocks to Hellbenders, a podcast highlighting Pennsylvania's parks, forests, and great outdoors. Tucked away in the rugged hills of northwestern Pennsylvania, Clear Creek State Forest offers a peaceful escape into one of the Commonwealth's most scenic and secluded natural areas. Spread across thousands of acres, this forest is a haven for nature lovers, where trails wind through towering hardwoods, crystal clear streams carve their way through valleys, and wildlife flourishes in every direction. Whether you're wandering through old-growth forests, casting a line in the Clarion River, or simply soaking in the stillness of the woods, Clear Creek invites you to slow down and reconnect with the wild beauty of Pennsylvania. One of the forest's most compelling features is its sense of solitude. Unlike some of the busier parks and forests in the state, Clear Creek often feels like a well-kept secret, offering quiet trails and remote backcountry campsites that let visitors truly immerse themselves in nature. Hikers can explore paths where they might stumble upon deer, wildflowers, or remnants of Pennsylvania's logging past. And in autumn, the forest puts on a breathtaking show of fiery reds, oranges, and golds that reflect off the water and blanket the hillsides. But really, every season is spectacular in Clear Creek State Forest. From kayaking and fishing to hunting and wildlife photography, there's no shortage of ways to experience the land. More than just beautiful scenery, Clear Creek State Forest is a place to reunite with nature, with yourselves, or with your loved ones. For many, the real draw of Clear Creek lies in its unspoiled charm. A reminder that some of the best places in Pennsylvania are still those where the only sound is the wind through the trees and the rush of a mountain stream. It's the kind of place that reminds you why Pennsylvania is such a special place for outdoor recreation. A landscape shaped by time, preserved with care, and waiting to be discovered. But before we learn more about the forest, here's the stats. Clear Creek State Forest is a 16,716-acre forest located in Jefferson, Clarion, Venango, Forest, and Mercer counties. Available activities include hiking, mountain biking, horse riding, picnicking, fishing, hunting, camping, and sightseeing. A notable feature of the forest is that it's home to Beartown Rocks, massive sandstone boulders perched on a ridgetop that offers panoramic views. Clear Creek State Forest is named for the crystal clear stream that flows through the forest. Nearby towns include Clarion, Brookville, and Clintonville. Public lands that are close by include M.K. Goddard, Oil Creek, and Cook Forest State Parks, as well as the Allegheny National Forest. You may enjoy the forest if you enjoy immersing yourselves in the quiet beauty of Pennsylvania's backcountry wilderness. I'm excited to welcome Miles Valchar to the podcast. Miles is the timber management and outdoor recreation forester at Clear Creek State Forest. Miles, thanks so much for joining the program.
Oh, thank you. This is an awesome opportunity. I'm so happy to be here and talk to you today.
How would you describe the forest to someone who's never been there before?
That's a very interesting question. I've actually pondered this one quite a bit because I wanted to get the best answer possible. So I would say Clear Creek is one of the most beautiful scenic forests that has a ton of character, a ton of history, and there's so much that it has to offer. Uh, there's so much here that any person can really take any outdoor recreation that they want to do, and we're going to have it to offer. There's a little bit of history that I had found about Clear Creek that I thought was pretty interesting and actually would relate to this question a bit. And so back in 1897, Pennsylvania passed legislature to uh, purchase some unclaimed or unceded lands. And in this visionary move, that's where the Pennsylvania State Forest System was created. And in this act, the acquisition was for about 40,000 acres of headwaters to protect the Commonwealth's major rivers. Our original name was the Katanning State Forest, which in Native American, it was a word that meant place of great water. And so I thought that was a pretty cool connection. And then in 1920, that's when we acquired Clear Creek State Forest that we know today. It's known for its sparkling, crystal clear streams that wind through the Clear Creek Tract in Jefferson County. And they are the headwaters to the Clarion and Allegheny Rivers, which our tracks lay on. So it truly is fulfilling that act that they put out in 1897, that we are protecting the headwaters of these streams. And that's why they are so crystal clear, because they're the beginning of all these rivers. There's no sediment deposition yet. So they are just some of the most beautiful streams that you could ever come across. Also, there's 77 miles of hiking trail out there. There's 48 for horseback riding, 57 for mountain biking. We have one of our long trails that go from Vermont all the way to North Dakota, and we're lucky enough to have some of it go across some of our land. We have hunting of grouse and deer and any small game There's fishing opportunities and wildlife photography opportunities, wildflower viewing opportunities. I mean, really anything that anybody's into, they can really find it here. And it's an incredible forest to come visit.
What do you love most about Clear Creek State Forest?
For my personal, for me personally, I would say my personal connection to it. My grandfather actually came here from way back to the mid 50s or 60s, and there's photos of my dad here in the 60s, and then he brought me here, and so it's just always been a personal connection to it. And I grew up outside of Pittsburgh in a small town of New Kensington, and so it was pretty urban kind of growing up. And so when we would come up here, it truly felt like you can finally get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, and there's no different sounds of car horns or fire whistles
Yeah.
or anything like that. I mean, it truly is one of the most incredible forests because it's big enough that you can walk into places where you feel like you might be the first person to ever walk there before, but then it's small enough that if you did start to feel like you were lost, if you just picked a direction and walked that way for an hour or two, it's all of our tracks are nearly completely surrounded by roads, and so you will find civilization again, but you can disappear into the forest and feel like you're completely alone. And I really think that's something that you can't really find in too many places.
With that sort of personal connection, it must be great to be able to work in a place that you love so much.
Oh, it is, and it also makes it a little bit tougher because I do have this personal connection and I want to do the best work possible. And so I truly pour my heart, and I know everybody else here has the same feeling of just you want to do the best possible because we all do have a personal connection to it. We all do care about this place so much. And so I wouldn't say it makes the job harder, but it definitely makes it more fulfilling in every sense of the word. I would also say something else that I love about Clear Creek State Forest is that whatever you're looking for, you can find on all of our tracks. If you're looking for a more populated recreation, our Kennerdale tract has shared use trails for horseback riding, mountain biking, and hiking. And pretty much any time you're out there, there's always going to be another person out there. So if you like that feel of a forest where you know there's going to be somebody else out there with you, that's going to be a great place to go. And then our Clear Creek Callan Run tracks, I think those are incredible, especially how I like to recreate is low density. And so you can hike some of those trails and you might not see another person all day long. And that I think is special in its own sense too.
The Clear Creek and Callan Run tract is made up of nearly 9,900 acres and about 18 miles of hiking trails in Jefferson County. Do you have any trail recommendations?
Oh, every single one. But I tried to narrow it down to just a couple, and I would say the Laurel Trail is one I would like to highlight. It's so beautiful in the spring and summer months when the bloom occurs. The smells that come with it are just perfect. Uh, it's a perfect place. The Laurel Trail does take you up to the Laurel Fields, where it's a great place to picnic. Uh, Another trail, this one. Is kind of personal for me because it's the Silvis Trail. And so it takes you by where we've done timber management in the past. And I have a privilege now to take up what these foresters have done before me. And when you take this trail, it'll take you past a couple of our treatments out there. And it shows how much when you go past them and you see the regeneration coming back and like we're doing it in a sustainable way where these forests are going to become like they're going to be better than they were, and they're healthy and they're diverse, and they're, I selfishly think that's one of my favorite trails just for that reason. And when you look at them, because silviculture is an art, they say, you can see the picture that that forester was trying to paint out there and try and understand what they were doing. And that's something that I think every single one of these foresters, and I know I take home with me after work, is trying to do the best you can for this land because we do care about it so much. Every single thing we do out there, we think about over and over again, and we take everything into consideration, like streams and vernal pools. And when you walk past those timber cells, I think it's showing of that we have taken a lot of care of these forests, and none of this is done willy-nilly or without thought going into it. And I think that's something that people could get when they hike the Silver Trail is just how much all these foresters have cared in the past, and we're going to care about them now too. The last trail I'd like to highlight here is the Beartown Rocks Trail, and I urge and I hope I guide people to do it this way because uh, I I think people should start the trail where it originates down in Clear Creek State Park and then hike it all the way up to Beartown Rocks. It is possible to drive straight to Beartown Rocks and just hike up to the top of the rocks and see the overlook. But I think taking the trail the whole way through the forest and watching the forest type change as you move through, as you go along Clear Creek up through the forest, it's more hemlocks and dark forest as you make your way through. And then as you come up out of the bottomlands, there's more oak and everything gets a little bit more light. And I think that trail is an incredible trail, especially because if you do the whole trail, there's a destination at the end, and the destination is the, as the saying goes, the juice is worth the squeeze when you get there.
What will people see if they hike that trail and see the Beartown Rocks overlook?
Oh, I actually have a little bit of history for this one, but it's a beautiful overlook that anybody can make it up to, I believe. There is a little bit of there's like rock stairs to get up to it, but when you get up there, you get to see the whole Allegheny Plateau. And this is the oldest known writing of Beartown Rocks by J.E. Hanold in 1891. And he said, in that region are some gigantic boulders of rock which on account of their size deserve the celebrity they have acquired as curiosities. And furthermore he said, the region is almost an unbroken wilderness from end to end. And I think that is truly a perfect description of what you'll see when you get the Beartown Rocks and you look off at the Allegheny Plateau. Is just unbroken wilderness from end to end. And it looks like as though a squirrel could probably run from the Beartown Rocks all the way off to the edge of the earth where you can't see any further without ever touching the ground. It's also been described as a rock city with a view, and I can agree with that. Every time I've ever been there and there's kids there, they're always clambering around on the rocks and they always seem to have a great time there. It's a great place for a family to go and begin their adventure at Clear Creek.
I love that there's a variety or multiple options in terms of if you don't want to hike the whole thing, you have an option to be able to drive to the top and kind of take those stairs up. Or if you want to make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more challenging, start at the state park and kind of hike your way up. That's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I think that's an awesome part of it too, because it does allow people who may not want to or may not have the time to hike up the trail. They can just pull in and see an amazing view. And yeah, that's pretty awesome.
You mentioned it before. What are the laurel fields?
Oh, the laurel fields. Another part, I get to bring some history into it. This is originally the Laurel Fields was a homestead that was settled by the Tillotsons back in the late 1800s, and only the cleared fields and were like the resulting fence rows that they used from clearing the stones from the fields are pretty much what you can tell is what's left of it. There's a little flat spot there, and there's a few apple trees that are still remnants of that time. Uh, but these fields that the Tillotsons used to provide food for their families, we have now turned them into a native pollinator seed mix. And the wildflowers that come up out there are for pollinator habitat. And when the flowers start to bloom, there's a few different types of milkweeds that pop up out there. So if you love milkweed as much as I do, I definitely recommend going to check those out. And when you do, I highly encourage you to go to smell those because I think that's one of the most incredible smells in all the forest is milkweed. The it it's unmatched, I'd say, besides maybe fall leaves.
Man, you're making me really want to visit.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's an incredible place, and it honestly, for anybody who doesn't have a lot of time or has a family that they want to have maybe a picnic, it's a great spot for a picnic. There's a little serpentine road that will take you up through the laurel fields, especially when they're in bloom. If you have the windows down, you'll get that incredible mountain laurel smell, and it when you go through that serpentine road and it is in bloom, it completely makes sense why that is a Pennsylvania state flower. It's incredible. And that laurel fields will be open from Memorial Day until Labor Day for everybody to enjoy. There's multiple picnic tables there for people to use for picnicking or just in the grass fields. It's definitely a really awesome spot for anybody who is looking for that type of picnic area. And after you've done the Serpentine Road and you've done a little picnicking, there's a little loop trail that's about a mile long called the Tillotson Loop, and honor that family. It takes you through the fields and through a little bit of woodlands. It's a nice little trail, and it won't take too long.
The Kennerdale tract of Clear Creek State Forest is about 3,300 acres in Venango County. Do you have any trail or overlook recommendations for those that are visiting the Kennerdale tract?
Yeah, Kennerdale is it's definitely one of my favorite tracks. It has so much to offer. And I have I think the Strip Mine Trail is a good trail for it. It's not very long, but it leads to the Fisherman Cove Trail, which these both are shared use trails and are open for hiking or biking or horseback riding. I think the Strip Mine Trail, going back to the history, I think is interesting because as you make your way through Kennerdale, especially if you're on horseback or any hiking or bike riding, you can look across the land and see how this we got the tract in 1980, and so up until that point this land has been used for many different things. And like that strip mine trail, it takes you past where the strip mine was, where they came and they got the coal out of the Kennerdell tract. And then there's areas where you'll see like a little pit and then the dirt on the back side of it, and that's where they prospected for iron. And then also on that tract, you can see some legacy from the gas infrastructure back in the day. And so I think that's why I do enjoy the strip mine trail, because it shows you like the different land uses over time. And we are taking steps to rehabilitate that land. And last year we took it was over 1,000 seedlings of both persimmon and American chestnut, the hybridized kind, and we planted them out there. And we're hoping that that starts to finally take off a little bit, maybe get some trees established, break it up a little bit. But that I'd say that's one of my favorite trails out there, just because I am falling in love with the history of Clear Creek. And then it takes you on the Fisherman Cove Trail, which is about a 2 mile loop trail, and it I would recommend either hiking or horseback riding, because I can't imagine riding a bike up that hill. But for anybody who wants to give it a shot, I would say do it. But I think that's an awesome trail as well, because it really takes you through parts of the forest that I don't think a lot of people will end up visiting, and through a timber sale that was done out there, and it has come back so lush and so full that the regeneration there is just incredible. Uh, there's so many trails here that I could highlight. The Denison Run Trail, I think if you're into fishing, that's an awesome trail to go down. There's native, naturally reproducing brook trout that are in that stream. And my dad and I would always go fishing for those. And it's almost like hunting and fishing at the same time, because as you have to sneak up, because if they feel your vibration, they'll scoot underneath the bank. And if they see your shadow, they'll hide. They're some of the funnest fish to try and to go after. Yeah, if you're looking for a little bit of like a wildlife photography opportunity, the river trail I'd recommend to anybody as well. Uh, Otter have been spotted from that road, beaver. In the distance, you'll be able to see the glisten of the sun off a soft-shelled turtle back from a distance. But as you get closer, they are very elusive and they will slip into the water. So just like the brook trout, you gotta be sneaky for those ones. But yeah, the every trail I would recommend over there, but if I had to highlight a couple, those would be them.
How can hikers check out the Denison Point Overlook?
The Denison Point Overlook, that can be reached by, if you go down, there's a small parking lot. We call it the Woody parking lot. And you can park there, and then there's a little administrative road you can take down. And then on the left-hand side of that, there will be a sign for the Kennerdale Trail. And you can take that Kennerdale Trail, and it will loop in a couple of different ways. But if you stay on that, there will be a little offshoot off of it that will take you out to the Overlook Trail. And the Denison Point overlook. It takes you out and you can see the Allegheny River and the valley below, and it really gives you a bird's eye view of this whole valley. And it's been on multiple occasions now where I've been there, and there's turkey vultures flying at eye level with you out there. And so from the ground, it would look like they were incredibly high in the air, but when you're at the overlook, you're looking eye to eye with them, and that's something that you don't
That's
really
so cool.
experience.
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
it is. I really enjoy that. And then something else that you can take into account while you're at the overlook is those trees around the overlook are about 150 years old. And so if trees could talk, imagine the stories that they could say about, I mean, for 150 years, I'd imagine people have been going to that point and looking over. And if they could talk, what would they say?
What is the Bullion Run iron furnace?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. This is a iron furnace that was created back in 1840. It was created by using the stones that surround that area, like creek stones, and they built this structure. It's like a truncated pyramid, about 40 to 50 feet tall, and they used it back in the day to create pig iron, which they would then ship down to Pittsburgh. But every day they would have to cut and harvest about an acre worth of timber to create the charcoal to then fuel that furnace. And it, I, when I first seen it, it just the size of the stones that the individuals used to create that furnace is they're so small, so there has to be thousands upon thousands to create that, and it's nearly 200 years old at this point, which I think is just incredible to see too, that it is still standing. I would definitely recommend anybody to get over and check that out if they're over in Kennerdale. It's just a little offshoot down off of South Trail, and you can use like once you go down, you can check out the Iron Furnace, and you can come back up that trail and continue the loop. And so that will even you can create that into a loop trail. And if you do that on your way back, you can then take a little right off to the overlook, and so you could then see the Iron Furnace and the overlook all in. There's two little out and back parts. It's not very long at all, but you can make that all one big loop and get to see some pretty awesome history of Kennerdale. And like I had mentioned earlier, those pits where they were prospecting for iron, they had found some because they did create that iron furnace there. And you can still see some of the slag still down in the stream to this day. It's it's definitely a pretty interesting history piece of Clear Creek.
Portions of the North Country National Scenic Trail and the Rachel Carson's Trails Conservancy's Baker Trail cross the Maple Creek and Clarion River tracks. Can you tell us about those trails?
Oh yeah, the North Country Scenic Trail, it goes all the way from Vermont all the way to North Dakota, which totals 4,800 miles. That's an incredible long trail. And the Baker Trail is about 134 miles of hiking and backpacking through Western PA, and it covers six different counties. And for a small, about 15 miles worth of time, those two trails line up, and we are lucky enough to have them come across our Maple Creek track. Uh, and what's actually really interesting there is that's we've been working through it for the past year, and it's gone through. And the North Country Trail Association, the Clarion chapter, led by Dave Galbraith, they're going to be coming out to reroute some of that trails to stay on state forest for a little bit longer. And so I think that's especially where it's going to cut through where it stays on longer on state forest. That area, I think, is one of the most interesting parts of Maple Creek. It's awesome that they're going to put it there because I think when people hike that section, they are going to be really taken back by it. There's some pit and mound topography there where it and like spongy moss and the trees just feel the forest just feels old. And so I think that is going to be a really awesome addition to that trail when they get that in.
Are there any trails not included in the tracks that you would want to highlight or recommend?
Well, not the tracks that I've mentioned so far, but we have a new McKeever track that we've acquired, and there's a new trail actually going in for all user groups to use, and it goes from our lower parking lot down to the bridge that crosses McCutcheon Run. And so that one I would like to bring to people's attention because that'll be an awesome trail. And then there's the McKeever Goddard Trail, where if you stay on that new trail that's going in and take it, it can take you all the way from McKeever over to Goddard State Park. And when you cross the McCutcheon Bridge, right after that, on your left-hand side, you can see remnants of an old swimming pool that they used to divert the creek way back in the day before we got the land and had a swimming pool in that area. And then as you make your way up a little bit further, you'll come to an opening. And in that opening, there used to be a baseball field. And so that when you look at the history of these areas and you start to see these things on the land and you start to question, like, what happened here? And when you start to find the answers, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. There was a baseball field here. That's why there's still some of a field left. The forest is taking it back over. But it is interesting to look at a forest and think, what happened here? And how to get like this. Another trail I would like to, it's also at the McKeever. It's old growth trail, and there was a old growth dedication. About 10 acres of that tract was put into the old growth forest network last year, and all those trees are 150 plus years old, and it has uh, big ravines. And if you take that trail down, there's a bench that we place at the end of it, and you get to look down the ravines down at the creek below. And I would say that's any individual can make it down to there, I would say. And it's a beautiful place to just go and sit and listen to the forest around you. And on multiple occasions while I've been over there, there's been a barred owl hooting and hollering through the valley, and so you get to hear the "Who cooks for you?" It's yeah, it's definitely a pretty awesome trail and new track that we have. Another one I would like to recommend is the Pine Run Loop Trail. That's over in our Clear Creek forest. It's kind of set apart from our like where all the other trails are. So if you go to this one, you have to go to other places to get the other trails. But the Pine Run Loop, I'd recommend it to people because it does take you through this huge boulder field, and it just is it takes you back a little bit. It takes you through these unique rock formations, and there's cascading streams. And as I was making my way through that boulder field one time, I looked off in the distance, probably about 150 yards away. A black bear was enjoying the boulder field at the same time, and he just walked off into the distance and down over a hill, and I was just happy to see him. That's one thing I would say about Clear Creek and any forest that you ever go to is I don't think animals are ever because growing up inner city, that was always something that I always heard growing up was like, oh, he's gonna get attacked by a bear or something. And
Sure, yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to be the case. I think anybody can go out there and have an amazing time, and the animals are never anything that you should ever worry about, and just enjoy being able to see them. So one last thing I would mention for this one is it's not a trail, but I did want to make people aware of it, and that we have an ADA accessible hunting road over on our Maple Creek track, and there's a few pull-offs for people to use. And if you have any disabilities, that I think that would be a great opportunity to get out there during rifle hunting season and still give it a go. And I just wanted to let people know that that was something that we do offer on our state forest.
Yeah, that's a wonderful option. That's great. We mentioned it a little bit before. Clear Creek State Forest offers 57 miles of shared use trails for mountain biking. Where can people go to mountain bike?
We have three tracks that offer great mountain biking opportunities. At the Clear Creek track, we have about 16 miles worth of shared use trails that people can use. And I will say that all these trails vary in difficulty. And so it could be worth hiking one first and seeing if that's something that you want to try and take on with your bike. But if you're experienced enough, I'd say any of the trails are good for you to go on Clear Creek. And the largest conglomeration of trails would either be the Clarion River Tract or Kennerdale Tract. And any of the trails that are blazed red there are shared use and are open to mountain bikes. And I would say across all these tracks, definitely do your homework a little bit and know that the degree of difficulty definitely varies between trails. But I think any of them are great options for anybody going out the mountain bike. And you can cover so much more ground on a state forest when you're on a bike. You can see so much more than anybody hiking that day will see. I think it's definitely an awesome way to get around the state forest. And all the state forest roads are open to people to traverse on as long as they're not labeled, not open to biking. But all those are open to people too.
And now, let's hear from our sponsors. Join the Keystone Trails Association's trail care team to show some love for the trails that you love. KTA organizes hands-on stewardship events and training workshops to maintain and expand hiking trails in Pennsylvania. You can find a trail care event near you. Check out KTA's schedule of events online at kta-hike.org. Are you looking for your next adventure? Unlock some of the best landscapes in Pennsylvania with incredibly detailed, highly curated, waterproof trail maps from the folks at Purple Lizard. They create extraordinary maps of Pennsylvania state forests for people who love to explore the outdoors. Find them at your local outfitters, bike shops, and bookstores, or visit purplelizard.com, where your next adventure begins. Refresh your love of Pennsylvania state parks and forests this spring with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. Stay in the know by finding events on Meetup or their website, signing up for their weekly e-newsletter, following them on social media, joining a local friends group, or accessing resources online at paparksandforests.org. Together, we can help conserve Pennsylvania's natural resources, support education, and remove barriers to an inclusive outdoor experience for everyone. Looking for a way to add some local Pennsylvania flair to your space? Check out Sisters Sunflowers. They create unique stickers inspired by small local spaces that make your community shine. From quirky caves to hidden local gems, their stickers bring your favorite places to life. Perfect for your laptop, water bottle, or anywhere that needs a little hometown love. For both locals and visitors, there's stickers, magnets, prints, and more celebrating Pennsylvania's most iconic parks and forests. And for the more avid explorers, there's even a hand-drawn poster to keep track of the Pennsylvania state parks and forests that you've been to. Use the code HELLBENDER15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Support local, inspire adventure, and decorate with meaning, only at Sisters Sunflowers. Shop now and celebrate the places that make your town special. All right, back to the show. There's a number of places to fish. Where can people go to fish, and what do you think people can catch?
There's a ton of opportunity for anglers in Clear Creek. There's for trout, there's stocked waters. We have the Clear Creek track, or Clear Creek that runs straight through our Clear Creek tract. There's Callan Run. It comes down and then deposits into the Clarion River. But before it gets down to the Clarion River, there's the Heath Pump Station. And above the Heath Pump Station is where those waters will be stocked. And then there's the Maple Creek track, and that also has stocked waters for anybody who's out there and wants to try and angle some trout this year. At the Clear Creek and Callan Run, there are naturally reproducing native brook trouts I've seen out there. So that's also an opportunity that if you keep walking up those streams past where they've stocked, there's definitely opportunity to still catch some of those native trouts. The color on them is just incredible. They are just so much more vibrant than the stock trout, and they're just beautiful. If nobody's ever seen one before, even if you're not going to try and catch one, I would say try to sneak up to a pool and get your eyes on one. Other opportunities for fishing, there's the Allegheny River. That's over at the Kennerdale Tract, and you can canoe down, and we have primitive campsites they can pull off to, and they can fish all day all along the Allegheny River there. Smallmouth bass, any when fishing a river, my dad always told me anything's possible. So, I used to fish the Allegheny River down by New Kensington, and we caught a tiger muskie out of there one time. So, I think rivers are truly, you never know what you're going to pull out when you're fishing a river. And then there's also the Clarion River. And I wanted to mention this spot. If you go by the Clear Creek Callan Run tracks, 949, the state highway, it'll go past, there's a little pull off near the Clarion River there. And if you pull off it's a pretty big picnic area. So if you just wanted to picnic, that's a great area. But if you look over the bank off on the right-hand side, you can scramble down the bank and then get out onto some pretty large boulders. And you can spend all day out there fishing in the summertime and have a picnic out there. And I always see people out there enjoying the river off of those boulders. So I'd like to see more people out there using them. It's a great place to cast the line and spend a day.
Is there something everyone should experience when they visit?
I don't know if everybody should experience. Well, it's not that they should experience. I think they will experience it. I think that when you come to the forest, you are automatically going to feel less stress. You're going to feel more connected to the earth around you. And you're going to realize that you're no longer like apart from nature. You're a part of nature once you enter the forest. And I think that if you take a few steps off the path and you just go in and you find a little stump or maybe a stone to sit on and just close your eyes and just you'll feel the peace that the forest brings, and like you don't hear all the outside noises, and you can finally hear your own thoughts, and it's a great time to be introspective and learn more about yourself and find out what you're comfortable with. And it's I think everybody will leave with that experience, that the peace that the forest can bring you, and the connection back to the earth, and what we take granted every single day of just breathing this beautiful fresh air, and how the sunlight dances down through the canopy. And there's I mean, when you're out in the forest, the I think everybody will get that connection of realizing, like, this is what's really important in life, is these moments of just everything around you is alive and real, and you're connected to it. And I think that's something that everybody will take from coming to the forest. And just, I mean, take your phone with you, but maybe put it on silent and really try not to look at it. But when you're out there, it can just be you in the forest, and there's nothing to be afraid of out there. It's an incredible place that we've been for thousands of years. And I think people, as society progresses, getting back out to the forest become more and more important to people, because it resets you and lets you realize, like, what's important in life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If a visitor has a full weekend to explore the forest, what do you recommend they do?
Ooh, I've thought about this, and I would recommend leaving all your options open, but bringing everything that you have. Bring your fishing pole, hiking shoes, binoculars, camera, kayaks, camping gear. Bring it all with you, and then be open to doing anything. Because maybe you want to do some hiking, but then the trails might be more busy than you wanted it to be for your hiking experience. So then maybe you go down to the river and cast a few lines, or maybe you do hiking and you hike up Callan Run and try and do some of the native brook trout fishing. Or, I mean, you can take your camera with you, and there's going to be, I mean, when you're out in the forest, you always find something cool that you need a camera for it. There's going to be some type of fungus or a moss or a cool bird, or, I mean, so bring everything with you that you could possibly need for that weekend, and then be willing to do anything that you want, really. I mean, I would say, if you have a whole weekend, the options are endless in what you can get into.
A visitor only has a couple hours. What do you think they should see?
So if a visitor only has a couple hours, it depends on which track they're closest to. But if you're at the Clear Creek tract, I would say a quick stop would be the Laurel Fields in the summertime. You could do that Serpentine Road, and then there's the picnic area. You have a little picnic, and then you get a little hike in at the end of the Tillotson Loop. If you wanted a little bit more hiking in it, you could do the Beartown Rocks Trail, and it takes you up to that overlook where you can see unbroken wilderness from end to end. And there's endless, when you look out into that vastness, it's truly endless opportunity to do all of those things that I mentioned before, of just hiking, backpacking, fishing. All those things exist in that vast openness that you see from that overlook. And so I think that would be a cool thing to stop by and see. And when you look at that vast overlook and you see the forest out there, that's what we're all here for, and that's what we were trying to conserve and manage sustainably, for not just us, but for you, for everybody of the public, for all the future generations that are coming and enjoy this as well. When you see that unbroken wilderness, I think it might make people more willing to try and get out there more, because you see all the opportunity that's out there. Maybe it's just me, but I can look out into that openness and just think of all the fun that can be had out there. If you're over at the Kennerdale tract, I would recommend doing the Iron Furnace Trail. Depending on, if with a couple hours, you can definitely get down the South Trail, get down to the Iron Furnace. Depends on how fast of a hiker you are, but you might be able to make it around and then up to the Overlook as well. But I think checking out that Iron Furnace, nearly 200 years old, it it'd be sad to see it, but if it did fall or something happened to it, I think it would be it's now's the time to go check it out because it is 200 years old, so it's not getting any healthier. Uh, and then the last thing I would say, yeah, is trying to get up that overlook and just and enjoy being able to see over the valley below and maybe ask yourself, these trees are 150 years old. What were they looking at here? This area, like Kennerdell, was known like for Native American trading back in the day, and so there have been people there for a very long time, and so these trees have seen quite a bit, and that's always my biggest wish is one day they'll be able to talk.
When's your favorite time to visit the forest?
No, well, all of them for me personally. Spring. If you come in the spring, everything's coming alive again. Things are getting green every day. The smells are becoming more prevalent again. The forest is becoming alive. The grouse are drumming on the ground. Uh, the birds are back and they're singing in the forest. It's no longer that quiet winter sound. Spring is one of my favorite times to be out there. You can just feel the forest. If you go out there 5 days in a row, you can feel the forest and see it coming more alive every single day. It gets a little bit more green. And then winter, this is also one of my favorite times because for me, there's nothing like hiking around in a snow squall. When the snow is, it's almost a complete whiteout out there. And that's one of my favorite times to hike is when it's just really coming down out there. Uh, and I had a coworker once mention to me, and it really opened up my eyes to the beauty of winter. And they had mentioned about all the shades of the browns out there and all the different shades of gray and all the many green plants, but the variety of the different greens that you see out there. Everybody thinks that winter is just bland, just nothingness, but in my eyes, after he said that, it is when you go out there and you start to look for all the different colors of greens and even the snow. It depends on if you're on like a north slope or a south slope. Is there something shadowing the snow? I mean, even the snow might be just white, but it depends on, yeah, where is it lying? And like winter is truly one of the most beautiful times in the year to be out in the forest. Summer, the birds are back, the trees are leafed out and green, the flowers are flowering, the weather is warm. I mean, you can't really beat the summer because anything you want to do outside is possible during those months. It's a great time to take a trip to the forest. The days are longer, so if you do like hiking or biking or horseback riding, it gives you more time to do that. Floating down the river and casting a few lines. I mean, summer is a pretty hard month to beat coming to the forest because everything is possible in the summer months. And then for fall, I could say every month. This is why I love having 4 seasons here in Pennsylvania because every single one has a little bit to offer. But for fall, I would say this is probably one of my favorite times because I love that smell of the fall season, like the leaves decomposing. And at the beginning of my career, I traveled around a bit and I never realized how much I missed that smell until I came back one time and I realized like how much that meant to me. And when you smell that, the leaves decay and that fall smell, the nostalgia that brings back, it makes it feel like it's Halloween again, or it just brings back just memories and a smell. And I think that's one of my favorite reasons that I love fall so much. So for anybody, and then the colors. If you go up to Beartown Rocks Overlook or Denison Point Overlook, seeing those overlooks during that time of the year, the amount of color and I mean, it is one of the most beautiful times of the year. People come from all over the country to come and see these leaves. So yeah, it's a great time to come out to the forest and see them too.
What kind of camping options are available for visitors?
Well, we actually have a lot of different options for people when they come to the forest. We have 5 motorized campsites that people can book through reserveamerica.com. They don't have amenities, but if you're at the Clear Creek track at the Beartown Rocks, there's a pit toilet for anybody to use, and I think those are great options for anybody. They're pretty well placed throughout the forest, where there's a couple down by Clear Run that there's that's not too far from Callan Run that you could go down and fish from those areas. All those campsites are pretty awesome, especially if you have a trailer. There's 8 primitive campsites over in Kennerdell. And those ones are awesome for anybody that's floating down the river. You can pull off and stop for a night, and there's no reservation needed if you're staying for just a night. It's in less than 10 people in a group. But that, yeah, so those primitive campsites over in Canada are pretty incredible. And then on state forest, you can camp anywhere. Uh, in Clear Creek, you can't camp near Beartown Rocks Trail, and then there's a few other rules that we have for primitive camping. There's no camping within 25 feet of a trail, not within 100 feet of a stream or open water, and you do have to be at least 200 feet away from a state forest road. But if you go to our Callan Run track, you can pretty much camp anywhere over there, and you would satisfy all of those requirements. So, and then I also wanted to mention that our ranger Clinton, if you ever see him out there, because he makes it around everywhere, he is a great resource for if you ever looking for anything to do in the forest or anything in that area. He is. Don't be afraid to flag him down. He is a happy-go-lucky guy that is excited to help you out if you ever see him out there. And I'm sure if you ever get one of the motorized campsites, he'll probably come in and just say hello and see if you're looking for anything to do in the forest. Everybody here, that's what I would say, is if you ever see anybody with a DCNR shirt or a hat on, uh, our maintenance crew, they're all out here every single day, clearing the trails, doing the boundaries. They know this forest like the back of their hand, and they care about it just like I care about it, and everybody else cares about it. And so, if you ever see any of us out there, please come up and say hello. And I'm sure if you whoever you speak to, you're gonna see a little piece of what they enjoy about this forest because they'll probably give you that option of what they really enjoy about it. And so I just wanted to let people know about that, that if you're ever out camping and you see us, don't be afraid. We're not there to scare anybody or give you a hard time. We want you to have the best time possible, and we all love this forest the way you do. So please come up and talk to us.
I think you mentioned it earlier. What is the Danner Primitive Camping Area?
Yeah, I mentioned that. It's an awesome spot. It has a little bit of history connected to it too. We acquired Kennerdell in 1980, and there used to be a Danner hunting camp that was in that area. It's down a little bit further, but so that's where it's gotten its name from. But the Danner campground is primitive campsites. There is a newly put in pit toilet there, so anybody who does pull over for the day, or say you're coming down the river and you really need to stop, that's a great place to stop. You can stay one night without any type of registration or letting anybody know as long as you're less than 10 people. And I think it's an awesome opportunity because from that Danner campground, you can really get to anywhere on that state forest land. There's trails if you hike down the road, river trail, you can. I mean, there's tons of wildlife viewing opportunities there, and then you can go up Blunder Trail. You can take it down further, and I mean, go up Pipeline. There's a ton of options out there once you're at that campground to explore the forest further, or you can bring a fishing pole and do a little fishing on that section. Uh, or you can just use it for a little stopover overnight, cook a little meal, and then get back on the river and keep floating if that's something you're into. But Bullion Run and Denison Run do empty into the river there, and so that definitely will give you some good opportunity to do some fishing there if that's what you're looking for.
Clear Creek State Forest has an awesome diversity of wildlife. What can visitors see if they take a trip to the forest?
Anything and everything, I'd say. I last year I was actually hiking through the Kennerdell Tract and I got to see a red-headed woodpecker, which is a species of conservation concern. So I was actually really excited to see that. There's grouse, deer, fish, otter, beaver, porcupines, bear, monarch butterflies, coyotes, foxes. Pretty much if it exists in PA, you'll find it on our forest. The one thing that won't be out there are elk, but some of our bucks, they do resemble elk sometimes. They are very large. So if you're looking for hunting, that's definitely an opportunity there. And actually, I was out at the Maple Creek track last year as well, and I ended up talking to a guy. He comes from Colorado every year to visit his family, and when he's back, he goes out and turkey hunts on our Maple Creek track. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, I mean, yeah, people are coming from everywhere to come and see this beautiful forest that we have. And I earlier last year, I also was hiking down a trail, and it they blend in so well. But I seen an American woodcock and it ended up having three babies with her. And I'll tell you, those have to be some of the cutest bird babies that you could possibly see. They don't have the large beak yet, but when I seen it, it just melted my heart.
Do you have any tips for people who plan on visiting the forest or any suggestions to make their visit as enjoyable as possible?
I would just say come with a open mind and bring whatever you want to do with you because we have it. I mean, if you want low density bike riding, Clear Creek's going to be it. If you want more people out there with you, Kennerdale. If you want to go horseback riding, we have uh, plenty of trails on the Clarion River tract in Kennerdale, fishing opportunities, hunting opportunities. There's so much for photography. Uh, to have the best time possible, I would say there's a couple you have to use technology, but there are a couple apps that I would recommend people having just because I find them to be so interesting and helpful. I never thought things like this would exist. But the first one is All Trails, and that one just is it's nice for anybody because you'll come across service on our tracks enough that you can check and see where you're out on the trail and say you're getting a little bit tired. If you have the All Trails app, you can pull it up and it'll show you exactly where you are on the trail, and you can decide from there, like, do I want to continue this 2 mile loop or is it worth just me turning back and maybe I can just do it another day if it starts to pour down rain or you're getting tired. And so I think that would definitely enhance people's time when they're out there is just having that all trails to be able to see where they're at. And it also it I find it I love knowing where I'm at out there. So that I think that's useful for sure. There's another app called the Seek app, and this one is mind blowing. But anybody who has a cell phone, if you take it and hold it up to pretty much anything in nature, insects, funguses, mosses, leaves, it will get you pretty close, if not correct, on what it is. It'll identify it for you. And if it doesn't perfectly identify it for you, it may get you close enough to like maybe a family name of it. And so then you can look up that family and see what it looks like the closest. And so I think that Seek app has really opened up the outdoors to anybody because I mean that was always my biggest fear with like going and collecting mushrooms was I'm not 100% sure but
Yeah.
it is pretty good with chanterelles and so it's definitely a pretty awesome app to have when you're out in the forest. I would never put 100% trust in it, but it definitely gets you close enough that you can do a little bit more research and feel pretty confident with what you found. And the last app I would recommend is the Merlin Bird ID app. And this one is just an incredible app too, because it makes anybody a birder essentially because you can just go out and hold your phone up in the air and any bird that's singing a song around you it will identify it and then it will also when that bird sings again it will highlight that bird that's singing at that current time and so you're able to train yourself on learning these bird songs and you know for a while I did this pretty thoroughly and I was like I'm getting pretty good and then I hung out with my friend and he's just another level of birder. Just the smallest sound, he knows what it is, or just flight patterns, he'll be able to identify it. And so this bird app will definitely get you started, but uh, hanging out with a real birder and going out birding with people, I think that it's a good first stepping stone to get people into it because I can't tell you how many countless times I've heard a bird in the forest and I've heard it before and I know what that is and then so using that app it'll just give you the confirmation you need that you are listening to what you think you are. Uh, One other thing I would say is because I've fallen in love with it recently is just if before you come out to the forest if it interests you and maybe if it doesn't but maybe if I explain it this way, it might make you a little bit more interested. Is just dig up a little bit of history about Clear Creek because as you make your way across these different tracks, the more history you find out, the more the little weird things start to make sense. Like over in Clear Creek, if you go down Clear Run, right off to the left-hand side, you'll see it looks like there was an old road there, but what it was an old railroad grade that it was Clear Creek was the first ones to ever use, well, not us personally, but the person in 1864 created a steam powered engine, and it was the first one ever used for hauling timbers. And they called it the Little Wonder. And so when you're making your way through our forest, you can still see these old railroad log grades out there. And it's just incredible. Like the more you learn about that, is that they used wooden railroad ties, and then the runners on them were also wooden. And then even the pegs they used to pin those all together were wooden too.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, there's not much left of the actual railroad, but you can still see the grade of it. And when you learn that, that's incredible that they were doing that. And then the last thing that I thought was really interesting about the Little Wonder was the man who operated it. They would load the logs during the day, but he would make that trek overnight through Clear Creek State. So next time you're out there, imagine driving a train on wooden railroads through the forest at night without any light. And that's what he did. And so he would run from the front of the train to the engine and keep it going, but he would have to run to the back of the train through pitch black in the middle of the night in the forest to use it to brake the train and slow it down. And so, I mean, the more I learned about this, it's just like, wow, the history out here is truly, truly something. Because as you make your, yeah, like I said, as you make your way through, you start to see things like, if you take our Trap Run Trail, off to the side of that, there's a giant oak barrel. I'm 6'5" and it's 4 foot taller than I am, and it's just ginormous. And what they used to do there was they would pump the oil out and then they would store it in those large oak barrels. And so just the history is just speckled across the whole landscape. And as you make your way up Callan Run Road in 1895, that's when they first discovered uh, oil out there. And so there's a stone when you go up Callan Run Road on the left-hand side that will mark where the first oil well was in Clear Creek State Forest. And so, you know, it I think it's important to learn the history because it teaches you where we've been and what we can learn from it and where we're going. And so I think I've always I was never really into history growing up, but as I've gotten older, I start to wonder more about what's happened in the past so I can understand it and make sense of these things that I see out there. So I think that would definitely add to some people's weekends when they came out is do a little bit of history, and so some of these things will just be so much more interesting to you when you see them on the landscape. But you will also see like where that railroad grade is. You can see where it was, but the forest is taking it back over. Uh, that's that's what's pretty incredible about nature is no matter in Canada, you like even the Pit and Mounds from the iron prospecting and the strip mine, all these areas, they may have been used in the past, but they are recovering and they're coming back healthy. And so I think it's important to learn from the past and you can still see it on the landscape, but we'll grow from it and learn from it and keep moving forward.
Man, I gotta tell you, you have me so hyped to go to this forest. Like I'm like
Good.
yes, I'm already looking at my phone trying to get schedule updates of when I might be able to show up in the summer or fall at some point. So man, you have it's so great to hear like how passionate you are about this place. You could tell how special it is. Luckily, I think because of where we live, we're very fortunate that there are so many of these state parks and state forests that have these incredible stories. All you have to do is be able to really take a chance and be able to get out into nature, and you'll find these things.
Exactly, exactly. You just have to take a weekend and go out there and see what you can find and see what you can learn and that's what I would say about any state forest is the staff there. They're gonna be is so excited if you come up and ask them like, what can I learn while I'm out here? What can I go check out? Everybody in these forests, they like how excited I am. They are just as excited to talk about it too. And so when you do come out and you see us out there, come say hi and say, what do you guys like to do when you're out here? Because everybody's going to have something to tell you, and we are lucky to have the state forest that we do, and all the land that's been set aside for people to come and enjoy, because it's it's an important part of Pennsylvania and getting out into our forests and caring for them and seeing them and loving them.
Miles, thanks so much for talking to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've had a great time, and it was great to meet you, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
I want to thank my guest Miles Valchar for joining the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Meta for more information about upcoming episodes. You can support the podcast by buying merch at hemlockstohellbenders.com, or you can click support this show in the podcast description to provide a monthly donation. This has been Hemlocks to Hellbenders. I'll see you out there. Hosting, production, and editing by Christian Alexanderson. Music by John Sauer. Graphics by Matt Davis.